This is Carlos Gazitua. He is the Vice President of Restaurants for the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, the Miami-Dade chapter. Carlos, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time. All right, so what are your thoughts on this idea of raising the minimum wage in Miami Beach?
Well, it's important to keep minimum wage at the pace with the cost of living, but it means measured increases. And most politicians, unfortunately, get this wrong about how minimum wage is the sole solution for cost of living. So when we focus on minimum wage only, the offset by price increases will occur rather rapidly, reducing the purchasing power gained by the employee. 28 states, Cornell University came out with a study, 28 states increased their minimum wage from 2003 and 2007 and found no association reduction in poverty. So what we want is creativity, because we're trying to give the purchasing power to the employee. So our idea is thinking of what's the city's plan for affordable housing for workers? What are they doing to reduce parking costs for the employees? Just in and of itself will increase the wages for all employees on Miami Beach.
Okay, real quickly, let me jump to, because you're bringing up a couple of different points, and we'll let the mayor obviously get the chance to respond. But I'm wondering, what effect would this proposed policy have on your members in the hospitality industry? I mean, what's the first thing that you see would happen?
Well, when you increase minimum wage, unfortunately, the industry has had a lot of challenges in the last few years, from commodity pricing to bringing better quality products to the consumer. You have more cost. Restaurants on average make about 7% profit. So when you increase on the labor side, what you're going to actually is going to happen is you're going to increase prices. So what we need to have is creativity on compensation. Danny Myers in New York is taking away tipping. That's an idea that we should be looking at. We should be talking about inspiring and creating creative ideas of how to pay the back of the house compared to the front of the house. Front of the house service in Miami Beach can make up to $70,000, $80,000. It's the back of the house that needs to have work. So what we don't need is Washington ideas to create solutions, because it never works. We need entrepreneur ideas to create the solution. And we, as the FRLA, are very happy to sit down with Mayor Levine and come up with different ideas and strategies, because the state of Florida is about creativity and entrepreneurship. We don't want to follow what other states are doing. We want to create our own legacy for the state of Florida, which has made so many people come to the state of Florida. And we're worried about Miami Beach, making sure that we don't reduce tourism in our area, and local consumers, with increasing prices, we don't want them to change their habits of going out to eat.
Okay. All right, Mayor Levine. So he's saying basically, look, we want creative ideas. He did bring up a couple of interesting points. You could raise the minimum wage, but here's the reality. Cost of living in Miami-Dade, but Miami Beach especially, $13.31 an hour is still going to be hard for you to live.
Sure. So let me answer those questions. And they're very good points that Carlos brought up. First of all, I agree that politicians don't necessarily understand the business world. So just for Carlos to understand, I'm an entrepreneur who started from nothing and built some of the largest companies in Miami Beach in the hospitality and travel industry. So you're not talking to a mayor who's a politician. You're talking to a mayor who's actually employed hundreds and hundreds of people and actually still has a company on Miami Beach after successfully selling my company to Louis Vuitton. So I understand businesses. I think I understand entrepreneurship probably better than most elected leaders in this entire state. And the one thing that I do understand is that motivated employees that have the ability to live, that are comfortable, that are confident, that have dignity will do a better job. That's number one. Number two, I think it's very important to understand that what we're proposing is not a minimum wage, it's a minimum living wage to make sure people can live comfortably. And remember something, we're looking to actually begin this at $10.31 a year from this summer, assuming that it does pass, giving businesses at least 1 year to even understand through our outreach program of what it's about. It wouldn't get to $13.31 until 2020, which is 5 years from now. The third point, which is very important to understand, is that we're not talking about front of house people. We're not talking about people that are actually making tips. You know who we're talking about? We're talking about that housekeeper, that single mom housekeeper that's cleaning rooms all day, who's trying to support her kids and have a better life, or that dishwasher who you don't see, who's trying to help his grandmother or his mother or to live. That's who we're trying to help.
Let me push back a little bit here. Then, as the former entrepreneur, then what I'm curious is, how do you determine what that wage is going to be? And, I'm just wondering, as an entrepreneur, do you ever say, well, if I pay them more, that's going to hurt the bottom line, right?
Well, let me explain to you about the bottom line, okay? If you were talking about something where you wanted to take over and increase wages for every single person that's actually on the tipping position, that's very, very different. But when you're talking about restaurants or hotels, in Miami Beach, we have restaurants and hotels that are commanding huge pricing, huge room rates per day. I said, I really believe that the people that are working have the right to be able to live. And I got to tell you something. We've got a lot of support from hotels and from restaurants that believe this is the right thing, and it's very, very important to understand that.
All right, Carlos Gazitua. Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, let's focus on, if you're going to increase wages, focus on regulation, taxes that can offset some of these wages. Because as you know, this is not about what price point it's going to be about living wage, because that's going to be all relative to each city, and it's going to change based on price increase. We need to be creative on how to tackle these issues. South Beach has majority of restaurants and hotels will bring taxes into the city, so we need to be a little bit more creative on how we can do this. And I would love to have a conversation with Mr. Lean to figure out how we can both come together and see some ideas that really can help offset a full living wage through businesses and employers focused on one vision to get there.
Well, I know I don't have enough time to help you guys find that answer, but let me ask you this, Carlos. Is the other question too is, again, just raise. I can understand some companies, big companies, they could probably handle this. Maybe the smaller companies. I mean, here's the thing though. I mean, really, what do you see as the biggest issue for them, moving forward if this does happen and they have to raise that minimum wage by 2020?
So unfortunately, small businesses don't have the legal department to be able to handle a lot of these issues that occur. They also don't know necessarily how to handle it. They don't want to increase prices. They're scared about their consumer, that if they increase price, the volume goes down. So unfortunately, price increases don't happen at the same time. Small businesses will be affected. So there needs to be a conversation and creativity.
You said you want creative ideas. I've only got a couple minutes. You want creative ideas, but are you pushing back on the mayor?
I think it's very, very important to say this, that we're going to bring this to our finance committee. We're going to look at the impact on small businesses. There may be an exemption for small businesses with only a certain amount of employees. So that could be looked at. But let me tell you something. You're going to hear what Carlos is saying. You heard all across the country. Studies have shown, Seattle have enacted it, there's no decrease in employment. There's an increase in employment. There's an increase in quality of life. Business expands. So this is a normal argument that you always hear. And, of course, we believe it's the right thing to do.
Carlos Gazitua, in 30 seconds, is there going to be pushback? Or are you willing to sit down with the mayor and say, let's find those creative ideas?
Always finding creative ideas. That's what entrepreneurs are all about. I don't think Danny Myers is in New York is against minimum wage. It's about being creative. We just want to have entrepreneurs being involved. Just by the way, this Congressional Budget Office came out with minimum wage analysis for 1010, $500,000 job lost. Miami University, $12 an hour, $770,000 job lost.
This is not all true.
It's not about
and you
it's
have
not
the
about
most
wages.
Entrepreneurial mayor in the country right now, so I welcome you to come in because no one's more entrepreneurial than this mayor.
All right, when you bring this up next week at the commission meeting, though, I mean, you're going to hear this kind of stuff,
and we're going to hear from hundreds and hundreds of residents and workers that believe it's the right thing.
And by the way, this also, Mayor, we should focus on the federal level, because not everything the city can do. This has to be a conversation in Washington to talk about this and on these creativity compensation ideas, because there's only so much you can do and I can do, but it's a federal conversation as well.
All right, real quickly, Mayor Levine, last couple of seconds here is, when you do bring this up, I mean, do you get the sense you have the support right now, or are you ready for a fight?
No, I think we have the support, but of course, our commissioners have all independent minds, and they will say whatever they feel, but I believe it's the right thing.
All right, I'm going to have to stop it there. This is a conversation, again, we can keep having for a while. We'll bring it back, don't worry. I want to thank Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine, and also Carlos Gazitua, Vice President for the Florida Restaurants and Lodging Association Miami-Dade chapter. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.